Hey everybody, so welcome back to Jim Bob's Garden. Today is going to be another episode of Jim Bob in the Weeds, where I pull weeds and let you listen to me just ramble on about some things that are near and dear to my heart, or not, as the case may be. Can't promise I'll stay on subject, but I'm going to try. Armed with my cup of coffee, my trusty glasses. Might actually get some rain today, man. That'd be fantastic. We are so dry here. That's one of the challenges down here in Florida. Is that we actually have a dead season. You know, most people, the wintertime is a bad season. But down here in Florida, the rough season is actually the summertime, because of the heat and humidity and the bug pressure. It gets real crazy. And then the other challenge is that, you know, you got to get as much growing as possible before the dead season hits. But spring is always our driest time of year. All right? Like right now, we're in semi-drought conditions down here in the Jacksonville area, where, you know, most people are getting lots and lots of rain, if anything, too much rain. But what I want to talk about today, though, is not the rain. Oh man, if I have to shut this video down because of rain, I'll be so happy. But what I want to talk about is don't let your garden break you. All right, so what do you mean by that? So there's three basic times of broke, in my opinion. Just my opinion, though. One is financially broke. Okay. You can spend thousands and thousands of dollars on a garden. I mean, literally. I mean, you can buy garden beds that will cost you, you know, a couple $100 a shot, you know, for an 8-foot bed or what have you. You can spend a lot of money on buying plants and putting them in. Then spend more money on compost. Well, even compost and fertilizer and so on. You know, like I've said before in many videos, you know, about something I saw where somebody was talking about how they had grown a $60 tomato. I'm like, what? And I looked into the video, and basically, as I remember, it's been a while. Basically, they had spent money on you know, soil, garden beds, and they had spent money on fertilizer and everything else, and only managed to grow one tomato. And I'm here to tell you, there's going to be years where things just don't want to grow. Like this year, for example, my plum crop, which I've got a ruby red plum that really didn't have a variety as such that I'm aware of. And some years it produces and some it doesn't. Now my loquats, which is a Japanese plum, have done fantastic this year. But the plums not so much. And I think it has to do with pollinators, which is a subject for another video. But you can go broke trying to grow a garden, which is kind of ridiculous, because one of the best things about a garden, other than, you know, growing, the satisfaction of growing your own food and then eating what comes out of your garden, because, I mean, you know where it's been, you know what's touched it, you know what kind of chemicals have been used on it. You know, a lot of advantages to having your own garden. But, you know, like I said, you can spend a lot of money. I mean, just buying tools for your garden can cost you a lot of money. I mean, there's some basic tools that I think every gardener should have, like a rake, a hoe, a shovel, some kind of clippers. But you can also buy tillers, and you can buy all kinds of machines, you know, a weed whacker. You can buy wood shredders, or you know, branch shredders, or, you know, various different tools that you can buy for your garden that will cost you, you know, anywhere from a couple hundred to $1,000 a piece, depending on the quality, you know, the size of material it can take on and so on. And then, you know, you add into that the cost of plants, because, you know, some people don't want to start from seed, because it is more difficult starting from seed, because you have to get them started in time for the season. Alright, and you want, particularly down here where we have issues with, you know, summertime being the dead season, you got to get them in, get them grown, and get some harvest in order to make it worthwhile before you hit that dead season where it's really difficult to keep things growing. And we'll talk more about that as it gets near. But you know, those are some of the challenges that can lead you to be financially broke from trying to grow food on the cheap, which is kind of ridiculous, you know what I mean? So, like, I'll tell you a great example is a lot of people buy compost. All right, man, I have some really nice dirt here. I mean, it's just now getting to where it'll start to clump up a little bit, because I actually had bad dirt before. All right, but that's some nice solid dirt. It's getting better and better every year. But a lot of people go out and buy dirt, and you know, depending on where you get it and so on, and if you get it on sale, you know, a bag of compost will cost you anywhere from $6-8 to, you know, $20-30. I saw a thing, California, they were talking about $30 or $29, something like that, for a bag of garden soil or a bag of compost. And I was like, man, that's expensive. Of course, you know, everything's expensive in California. And yes, I know, I've been there. I was stationed in California for, out of my Navy career, 7 years? Out of 24? 7? It's 5, 2, yeah, 7 years in California. And my wife's parents still live there. So, anyway. So, that's one of the challenges, you know, with a garden, is trying to do it as cheap as you can. And nearly everything that I do here, I try and do on the cheap, as much as possible. Like what I'm doing here, you know, I'm pulling weeds. I mean, I can just throw them away. I saw a guy that's got, I don't know, a whole stack of bagged up material. I don't know if it's grass clippings or what it is, but you know, it's some sort of yard waste, and all of that can be composted down. I mean, even tree limbs can be composted down. You name it. If it's natural, if it grows, it can be composted. And really, about the only thing that can't be composted is like plastics and so on. Even metal, theoretically, could be broken down over time, but you know, that's not really what we're into for most gardening. I can't think of a way to properly use it myself. But, you know, like boxes, paper towels, all kind of different things that were once organic material can be returned back to the earth, right? In the form of compost or mulch or various other things. Like we take all our junk mail and we shred it in a crosscut shredder. Makes nice small pieces when we got a crosscut. And that goes back into the garden in the form of mulch or into the compost bin. And we do a lot of composting. Why? I mean, it's not easy. It's a whole lot easier to just throw it in the trash and let the trash man take it away. But if I compost it, then I get rid of it in a biologically friendly manner, or ecologically, I guess, friendly manner. But I also don't have to go out and buy compost. I mean, I'm making my own. Then I'm going to show you that here soon. Take you over to my dirt factory and show you how I go about composting. But all of that is free. It doesn't cost me a penny. All right. Well, I mean, it costs me money in that, you know, I buy things in boxes, and the boxes are part of the cost. It's like my coffee grounds. You know, I got to have my coffee in the morning, regardless of whether or not I could compost it. And even before I started composting, I still have my coffee, because, you know, coffee is life. But I'm able to take that, all that coffee grounds, filters and the whole bit, and turn it into fertilizer for my garden. It's a beautiful thing. So, like I said, that's one of the ways your garden can break you. All right? I don't know if I said this before. There's actually 3 ways I think a garden can break you. 1, it can make you go financially broke, which we were just talking about. You can spend a lot of money gardening and not necessarily get that payoff that makes it worth it. And then another way a garden can break you is time. All right, you go time broke. We only have so much time. Only 24 hours in a day, 7 days in a week. And you can spend a lot of that in the garden. Now, I'm retired, so I have a lot more time. And then the third way that a garden can break you is in what I call give a shit. All right? There's only so many things you can give a shit about. I mean, you know, you got kids, you got work, you've got hobbies, you've got so many other things that you care about that, you know, that take up the other resources that can make you go broke, financial resources and time resources. So, you know, the give a shit factor matters as to how much you can really care about what you got going on. All right, and we'll go into that in a second here. But so I talked about financial, all right, and how you're not careful. You drive your garden, which you're hopefully, you know, doing to save some money and be able to eat more healthy. Because I mean, you can buy organic vegetables. Many stores, you know, stock them. Some stores specialize in them. And then, you know, I can go to a farmer's market or, you know, various other places and buy vegetables that have been grown locally, that have been grown organically, no pesticides and no fertilizers, or nothing but organic fertilizer. This is one of the reasons I like to grow my own, because what is organic? What's the definition? All right. I know there's a legal definition, but it's pretty loose. You know, for people to be able to claim this is an organic product. So I don't trust it. I don't know what's going into it. You know, just because it's organic doesn't mean that no chemicals can be used. And I still don't trust chemicals in my food. All right? I know, well, they're safe, you know, This has been tested on rats. They all lived. They're fine. But anyway. So that's the financial side of things. You know, don't let your garden drive you financially broke. All right? Don't spend so much money on food that it, you know, would have been cheaper to go buy it at the store. I mean, that's, to me, one way that your garden can break you. I mean, literally. It can drive your finances into the toilet. And for me and for most people, the only recompense is going to be cheap or free food. And you can make a living gardening if you have enough space and you have the will to do so. You can sell your produce. if you got a spot, I mean, you know, if I would have known kind of where we were going with this when we bought this house, I probably would have picked a different house, mostly because it would be great to be able to have a spot where I could have some traffic going by, and we could put a little stand out front, sell some of our produce. But once you start selling stuff, instead of just eating what you grow, then there's a whole lot more consideration that goes into it, and you got to look at the inputs versus the profits. All right, and then, you know, when you have a low value product like food, because food is produced, you know, fairly inexpensively and is available fairly inexpensively, you have to be able to overcome the input, you know, with the amount of money you receive. All right, now I'm not a business professional, and I'll be honest with you, I've never sold anything really out of my garden. I can't think of anything I've actually sold, all right, except for my videos, which I got to let you know. Another way you can profit off of your garden is to do a YouTube channel. Now, YouTube is great because I get the message out there. I think there's a bird right above me yelling at me. Like, hey, what are you doing? Get away. This is my food. Anyway. So, the squirrels and the birds eat a lot of my loquats. And when they do, you know, I end up with a lot of this. Like, I'm under a loquat tree right now. That's the shade I'm sitting in. And these are the seeds. And up underneath that loquat tree over there, because, you know, it's not in the garden, we don't really pull a lot of weeds over there. And so I probably have, I don't know, 50, 60, maybe as many as 100 baby loquat trees, like that. Now I could pot them up, and if I had a place to sell them, you know, I could probably like rent a stall at the swap meet that's right next to, you know, real close to my house, within a mile or two, not 2 miles, I guess, a mile and a half. So I could sell baby loquat trees for, I don't know, 15, 20 bucks a piece. But then once you start thinking about, okay, one, I got to rent a stall, so I'm gonna have to sell a bunch. I don't know how much the stalls go for, but even if it's $100 a day, then, you know, I got to sell 5 loquat trees at 20 bucks each just to break even. And then, you know, if I sit there all day and nobody buys them, then I just lose money. You know, which is, you know, that's just the way business works. You know, you gotta spend money to make money. But is it a good business to be in? I don't know. Another thing my kids have told me is, you know, Daddy, why don't you sell seeds? And I'm like, well, you know, I could, but I gotta grow the seeds, which is fine. I have tons of seeds. Like I have, you know, a daikon radish over there that's putting out seed. I got bok choy over there that's bolted and I've let go. I've got onion seed that's, you know, popping up all over the place. I can be collecting. Got lettuce, the black seed of Simpson lettuce that's all seeded out, and I'm keeping those plants there for the seed. A lot of different things that I could grow for seed. Sorry, there's duck porn going on behind me. Thinking ducks. Let me move the camera. But the question becomes, again, you know, can I actually make any money? I mean, it's kind of like the YouTube thing. You know, I mean, yeah, I mean, I can make a little bit of money, but is it worth the effort? Because, you know, if I'm selling seeds, I got to grow them, which I do anyway, so that part's easy. But then I've got to package them up and ship them out. And the packaging isn't expensive, but by the time, you know, I print up a label, or print up an envelope, which is what I've done before when I give away seeds. Then get the seeds in it, measure them out, and then ship them. Each package of seeds is probably going to cost me a couple of bucks. I can make people pay for the shipping, but then where are they going to buy my seeds? If it's cheaper to go someplace where they can get the shipping for free, or the seeds at a much lower cost. And a lot of these seed companies get their seeds overseas or down south, and they have a factory kind of set up to where they can produce packages of seeds much cheaper than I ever would be able to. So then it becomes a thing of, well, I'm a small business, and you should buy from me. And some people will. Like my kids are big into it. Only try and only buy from a small business, or family-run business, or local business. Because there is advantages to that. Once again, if I can sell them local, at some sort of stand, or like I said, if I bought a house where I can put a roadside stand out, that lowers the cost and all that. But is it worth it? For me, no. I have a retirement income coming in because I retired out of the Navy. And for me to make 20-30 bucks a month off of selling seeds, or to scale it up to where this becomes a full-time employment, I can go back to work. I was a store manager at an auto parts store. I can go back to work and probably make $50K a year, plus or minus a few. Plus, I have aircraft maintenance skills that I learned in the Navy, and there are a couple areas here locally where I can put those skills to work, go back to work, and make a reasonable living. But is it worth it? To me, no, because I'm set, I'm good. And it's kind of the same thing with selling seeds. I think that we get into the give a shit, where it's at some point, the give a shit section of my little talk here, where I probably would start to not really give a shit anymore. Alright, and where I would get tired of it and question my decision making process of getting into it to begin with, and then you find yourself not doing the job, or doing the job as well as you originally intended. So your product suffers, customer service might suffer, and so that's going to, it's going to affect your customer base. So, yes, you can make money gardening, but it's a long road to hoe, or a long row to hoe, not road. Right. And if you're going to do it, I highly recommend you really do some research to find out whether or not you really can make the kind of money you think you can. There's a lot of YouTubers out there that have decided that's what they're going to do, is they're going to garden for a living, and have found it's a little more difficult than what they originally thought. In which case, why not just get a job and garden on your spare time? Which brings us to the next thing, time. Another thing that will break you. You only have so much time. You only got so much time in this life. You only got so much time in a day. You only have so much time. And the question becomes, is it worth it to you to spend your time growing food? Now for me, I'm retired, so I have a lot of time. Plus it's something I enjoy. I think it's a huge stress reliever. I like being out here. It gets me out in the dirt. I know a lot of people are like, touch grass, touch grass. No, man, touch dirt. All right? Grass is great, but dirt is better. I think touching dirt that's great. I don't know for a fact that you absorb immunities from the soil, but I feel like you do. And I think that even the stress relief is so important and so critical that I think that your health will improve from gardening. All right? If nothing else, just for the idea of getting out and doing some stress relief. If you are retired, I highly recommend gardening, because one of the things that I think would drive me absolutely insane being retired is if I didn't have something to do. If my retirement consisted of me sitting on the couch, watching TV, getting pissed off about politics and whatever else is going on in the world. I mean, I think my stress levels would go up, and I think I'd die at an early age. Not to say I'll live forever, but because I don't live a necessarily healthy lifestyle. But I do get out and move, and I think gardening promotes that. But you only got so much time. So, can you justify utilizing that time or spending your time? Because, everybody talks about, I want to spend some time. But literally, that's what you're doing. I mean, it's just like having a bank account. You've got 24 hours in the day, all right? Let's take 8 of that out for work, maybe 10, leaving you 14. You got to sleep for, 6 or 8. We'll figure 8. And not everybody works one job. I mean, the state of things being what they are, you might have to work 2 jobs to keep ahead of things. I mean, it's to the point now where, literally 2 incomes is almost a requirement just to keep up. All right? And if you're a single parent, you're living on your own, you might find that to keep the rent paid, you either got to team up with somebody or have 2 jobs, or a job and a side hustle of some sort. Which is why a lot of people want to turn to gardening and try and make a side income on gardening, or do like I'm doing and do a gardening channel on YouTube or some other type of YouTube. I will tell you though, now you look at my videos, I get a couple hundred views, maybe 1,000 or so on the big ones on my videos. But I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, and I haven't spent a lot of time and effort or money trying to get my name out there as much as I probably could have. But my total income so far, after I think 8 years now putting out videos, I'll have to look, but is a whopping $650. That's not a month. That's not a year. $650 a lifetime. All right. I put it all in one account just to kind of keep track and see. But yeah, $60 is what I've made. I'm sorry, $650 is what I've made so far. All right. And I understand there are some strategies and things I could do. If I could throw some clickbait out there, maybe talk politics while I'm gardening, I can make a lot more money. If I had my beautiful wife out here doing these videos instead of my old ugly ass, it probably would do better. Maybe if I wore some skimpier clothes. There's a lot of things. Would you guys like to see me garden naked? No. You're old, man. Anyway. But anyway, there's ways that you can, improve your viewership and all of that. But I don't do it for the money. I really don't. Or I would have quit a long time ago. Like I said, I could make so much more with just a part-time job than I make doing videos. Right? And to be fair, it would be a lot less work. I mean, I could go work at a fast food restaurant. Which I got to say this. I'm going to tell you something. I have seen so many people that demean fast food work, or customer service and things like that. And I got to tell you, man, I have done all of it. Worked in factories. I did my time in the Navy. I worked at convenience stores. I worked at a couple fast food places in my time on this earth. And I'm going to tell you that if I was hungry, or if we weren't making the bills, I'd be back to work in a heartbeat. And if all I could find is a fast food restaurant, I would go do that. All right? I am not above flipping burgers to keep my family fed, keep myself fed, keep a roof over my head, you know, and the things that I need. And then, you know, one of the things people don't realize, just like anything else, if you go in there and work hard, more than likely you're going to get ahead. Maybe you get promoted to management or what have you. You know, if you work hard and you work smart, things will go well for you. I mean, there's a dearth of people who are willing to work hard. All right? And even in this day and age, I know everybody's like, oh no, you just got to be smart. No, if you're willing to work hard, that's a rare commodity in this world. But anyway, so back to the original subject. I told you I was going to wander a bit. Let me move my camera. So, time is a very valuable commodity. You only get so much. You only get so many days. You only get so many weeks, and you really only get so many years in this life. All right? So you got to think about that. And if you're going to garden, it's going to take some time. And this is one of the reasons why, you know, I've talked about before, and I'll talk about again, is how much garden do you need? Well, I mean, how much garden can you take care of? You know, if you've got children and you know, a job and a life, you got to really think, do I have enough money to really spend, or I'm sorry, enough time to spend in the garden? And do I want to spend my time doing that? All right? And this is why, you know, most people have jobs so they can go out and buy the food that they don't have time to grow on their own, or they don't have the inclination to. All right? So, it's one of the things you got to think about is, do you want to let your garden make your time broke? All right? Is this a good way for you to spend your time? I mean, I think it is. I think the benefits are fantastic. You know, like I said so many times, it's a great way to relieve stress. You come out here and spend half an hour a day, or most days, I shouldn't say every day, but and it just kind of grounds you. Gets you back to where you need to be. And there's some projects that are going to take you more than, you know, a half an hour. But, you know, it's like these trellises. You can see my trellis behind me. Yeah, you can see it back there. You know, they took some time, but man, I love them. Now I got cucumbers growing up that one. I got loofah. I got loofahs growing up this one. And by the end of the summer, these things will be hopefully completely covered by various and sundry different things. All right. I got to get my climbing beans going on them too. But at any rate, you know, it was great. It was putting them together, was a pain in the butt. It was a lot of work. But now I get to look at them. My garden looks better. My garden will grow better. And so all in all, it was a great thing. And every time I walk out here and look at them, you know, there's a bit of satisfaction because I did that. I made that from raw materials. And all it cost me was, you know, the materials and time. So I'm proud of it. You know, it's something you can be proud of. You can be happy with, and that's hard to find sometimes in this world. Stuff that makes you happy. You know, yeah, I did that. There's a lot of satisfaction in that. You know? I'll move the camera again. So, the last way that a garden can make you go broke is gonna give a shit. Alright? frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. There is only a limited amount of things that really you can care about. All right? If you got a lot of things going on in your life, do you really care about a garden? Now, don't get me wrong. It can be part of what you care about. Let's say you got kids and such, and you want to raise them on good, solid, homegrown food. That means that you do give a shit. All right? And that a garden will play well into the plan of the things you care about. All right? Like for me, I think it's important. I think that what I'm doing here is not only good for me and my family to eat, it's good for the environment, it's good for the world. You know, I am taking things that would go into a dump and turning them into food. Right? I am producing good, healthy food that I know exactly where it came from. I know exactly what was used to grow it. And so I do care about it. Right? I care about my garden. I care about the produce. I care about, you know, the environment and what I'm doing to hopefully help out. I think last time I counted, I have nearly 50 fruit trees. And while fruit trees are probably the top of the list as far as, you know, fixing global warming, I mean, they are a solution, part of a solution. You know, at least part of an effort to do better. You know, I mean, if you look around, you know, my yard, this used to all be grass, all right? Just grass. And, you know, I've got something like 50 some odd fruit trees of various types, everything from bananas to apples to, you know, olives and so on. But I also have a whole row of trees that I've allowed to grow up in the back. And that's part of why I'm able to be a wildlife refuge, is because, you know, it's an environment. And, you know, you can hear the birds squawking, and, you know, I was making jokes about, you know, duck porn going on behind me because the ducks are in the mood right now, being spring and all. But, you know, I have a lot of trees that are growing, and I have a lot of wildlife that's running around, and that's nature. And nature is really what we need back. You know, I was watching a pretty fascinating show on YouTube the other day. It was talking about how basically a lot of people were saying, well, you know, growing trees has been debunked as a cure for the global climate crisis. And come to find out, it's actually not true. I mean, yeah, just growing trees. Like if I grow a tree plantation, or, you know, an orchard, or just, like I said, a tree plantation where I just have trees growing up in a row, you know, in a tree garden, so to speak, then yeah, I'm not really helping out as much as possible. Now, it still helps. It's just not the most efficient and best use of the amount of land that, you know, is being used for oxygen production, because that's really what trees are all about, is you know, removing carbon and producing oxygen instead. You know, what's better for carbon capture and what's better for oxygen and I don't want to say removal of heat. I was going to say cool production, but, you know, it's hard to produce cool. I'm cool because I own leather sleeves. But anyway, it's another story. Old comedian joke. Not mine, not original. But you hear in the background, you hear an airplane going by. I really believe that is one of the leading causes of our global warming issues. Because, you know, unlike a car, most of the fuel that gets expended out of an aircraft at like 35,000, 40,000 feet. And there are no trees up there. Now I understand, you know, the atmosphere does get mixed up somewhat, but not as much as you would think, one. And two, it's still going to be a longer process, even if it does get down to the surface level. It's going to be a longer process for that to happen, and for the trees at the surface to take care of the carbon dioxide produced by these aircraft. In my opinion, I am not a scientist. I don't study global warming, but it's just common sense. You know, it makes sense. If you have a lot of carbon dioxide being produced, or carbon monoxide, or whatever, you get these aircraft that are, you know, flying around with truckloads of oil, all right, in the form of jet fuel, burning it at 35,000 feet, where there's just no mechanism to remove it. So if you were to ask me, what can I do to help with global warming and carbon sequester, you know, first thing I would say is grow some fruit trees, because they'll help you out, help out the environment. But I think the second thing I would tell you is don't fly. You know, if you drive down the road, most places in America, the interstates are bordered by trees. You got trees on the sides, and you got you know, grass in the median. And yeah, I know grass isn't a huge remover of carbon dioxide, but it does help. So you got these mechanisms that are just freely growing, and in fact they grow so much that they have to be cut back every so often. It helps to remove those chemicals in the air that are causing us the issue. All right. So I believe that you're far better off driving than you are flying. And no, it's not about being afraid of flying. I mean, I was an aviation structural mechanic for 24 years in the Navy. It's what I did. It was my living. So I believe in aviation. I believe for the most part it's safer than driving a car. And in fact, statistically, it is. You have a far higher chance of dying in a car crash than you do in an airplane crash, by far. And, you know, if you can avoid driving it altogether, or traveling, that's even better. You know? But, either way, I don't know how I wandered off onto this subject. But back to the give a shit. Alright, you only got so many shits to give. Alright. And is gardening one of them? I mean, that's up to you. You got to make that decision. You have to decide what's important to you in your life. And, you know, there's going to be more than one thing. You know, I don't know if you ever seen, what was the show? Curly. They went to a dude ranch and Curly died and all that. But anyway, Curly said one thing. That's the secret to life. Just do one thing and do it well. No, I disagree. Yeah, but it's a fun movie. What was the name of that movie? It's an old movie. Old movie. It had Billy Crystal in it and a couple other guys. But at any rate, you only got so many shits to give, and you got to figure out what's important to you in your life, and what do you really want to care about. For me, you know, gardening is one of them. So, you know, going back to the original, you know, subject matter, I guess, is don't let your garden drive you broke, or make you broke. All right, you've got so many banks of things in your life. You got, you know, money and time and just, I mean, caring. Give a shit. What do you care about? And you can only spread yourself so thin. And that's why when I talk about gardening, I tell people, well, how much garden can you take care of without driving yourself crazy? I will tell you that if you're driving yourself broke, on any one of those three fronts, where you just don't care anymore, you just don't have the money to do it anymore, or you just don't have the time, you're going to stop gardening. You're going to find that it's just too much, and then you have this bad taste in your mouth that's going to make it more difficult for you to start back up again at some point later in life. So that's why I caution people, start small and work your way up. All right? You can buy groceries, you can't buy time, you can't buy give a shit. All right? You got to figure out what's important to you in your life. I think gardening is fantastic for very many reasons. Environmental, health, and sanity. For me, gardening is critical. Gardening is critical. For you, I would say it might be different, but I can tell you it is different, because you have your own wants and needs that you have to take care of, which are going to be different than mine. That's just the way it is. So think about it. Start small, see how it goes, and then enlist help. If you got kids, man, get them into the garden. You can teach them how to garden in such a way that they help you out with the workload, and that it's fun. It's time spent with mommy and daddy, all right, or grandma and grandpa, whatever the case may be. All right, but start small, work your way up, get everybody else involved, and most importantly, enjoy it. I've said on almost every video I've ever done, most important thing is grow something. Get something growing in your yard. And for a variety of reasons, I think it is. I think it's one of the most important things in life that you can do is to get something growing in your backyard, because it'll help you get something growing in your life. All right. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for listening to me ramble. Hope you have a great day. I highly recommend gardening. I highly recommend that you spend some time, some money, and some give a shits on growing a garden. I think it'll help you out. But that's up to you. Either way, thanks for stopping by. Do me a favor. Give me a like and subscribe, and let me know what you think. Most importantly, grow something. Get something growing in your backyard. You'll thank yourself. All right, y'all come back and see me.